expensive divorce revenge in California history. And trust me, you've never heard a takedown quite like this one. Rain drummed against the kitchen windows of the Sterling mansion as Rebecca moved through her morning ritual. 6 o'clock sharp, coffee brewing, toast in the toaster. Financial papers arranged by priority on the granite counter. 7 months pregnant, she moved carefully around the kitchen island. Her silk robe caught on her rounded belly as she reached for Jonathan's suit jacket. The same routine for 5 years, the same careful choreography of being the perfect wife. The receipt fluttered to the floor like a dying leaf. Rebecca stared at the small piece of thermal paper. Mel's all-night diner. 2 entrees, 2 desserts, 2 coffees. Last Tuesday night. The night Jonathan said he was working late on the Singapore deal. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Chicken fried steak, apple pie a la mode. Things Jonathan Sterling would never order. Things he would sneer at during their charity galas, calling them peasant food. The baby kicked when I saw it, she whispered to the empty kitchen, like she knew before I did. The shower was running upstairs. Steam seeped under the bathroom door of their master suite. Rebecca had maybe 10 minutes before Jonathan came down. 10 minutes before he kissed her forehead with lips that tasted like expensive mouthwash and lies. She photographed the receipt with her phone. The flash reflected off her wedding ring. 3 carats, princess cut, selected by his mother because it photographed well at charity functions. Her phone buzzed. A work email for Jonathan about quarterly projections. She set it aside and opened the spice cabinet. Alphabetical order. Basil, cardamom, cumin, dill. She reorganized them even though the housekeeper had done it yesterday. Her hands needed something to do. Rebecca? Jonathan's voice carried down the marble staircase. Did you see my gray suit jacket? In the hall closet, she called back, slipping the receipt into her jewelry box between the earrings she never wore anymore. Footsteps on the stairs. Jonathan appeared in the doorway, phone already pressed to his ear. His dark hair was perfectly styled. His tie was already knotted, ready for another day of building his empire. Tell Richardson we'll match their offer, he said into the phone. But we want the patent rights bundled in the deal. He covered the phone with his hand and walked over to Rebecca. A quick kiss on her temple. His cologne filled her nostrils, the same scent she used to love. Big day today, he said. Might be late again tonight. Another Singapore call? The words slipped out before she could stop them. Jonathan paused, his gray eyes narrowed slightly. What? You've been working so late on that deal. Her voice sounded casual, normal. I just hope it's worth all the hours. It will be. He uncovered his phone. Richardson? Still there? Good. He was already moving toward the garage. Coffee forgotten, jacket draped over his arm. Rebecca watched through the kitchen window as his black Tesla disappeared down their circular driveway. The rain had stopped, but everything still looked gray and cold. She stood alone in their perfect kitchen. Marble countertops, stainless steel appliances, fresh flowers that the housekeeper replaced twice a week. Everything exactly as Margaret Sterling had designed it when they moved in. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. L. Rebecca stared at the message. L. Her heart pounded against her ribs. The baby kicked sharply, as if sensing her distress. She deleted the message and set her phone on the counter. Then she picked it up again and took a screenshot before deleting it. Evidence. Her lawyer brain was still there, buried under 5 years of charity luncheons and prenatal appointments. The house felt enormous around her. 12,000 square feet of empty rooms and perfect furniture. She had given up her career for this, given up her independence, given up herself. Rebecca walked to the living room and sank into the white leather sofa. Outside, the Pacific Ocean stretched to the horizon. Their view was worth millions. Their life looked perfect from the outside. But perfect was just another word for fake. She touched her belly and felt the baby move. Strong kicks, active, like she was ready to fight her way into the world. What am I going to do? Rebecca whispered. The baby kicked again, harder this time, as if she was answering. Rebecca's heartbeat echoed in her ears as she stared at the text message. L. The single letter burned into her mind like a brand. She Googled Mel's all-night diner with shaking fingers. The website showed a retro chrome exterior, red vinyl booths, a counter with spinning stools, the kind of place Jonathan would never set foot in under normal circumstances. Family owned since 1952, the website proclaimed, where everybody knows your name. Below the description was a staff photo. Rebecca zoomed in on each face until she found her. Young, beautiful, auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun, bright smile that probably lit up the whole diner. Lily Parker. The name was listed below the photo in cheerful script. Rebecca felt something crack inside her chest, not her heart breaking, something harder and more useful, her spine straightening, her lawyer instincts awakening after 5 years of sleep. She drove to the diner on autopilot. Her white BMW looked ridiculous in the parking lot full of pickup trucks and economy cars. Through the plate glass window, she could see the lunch crowd. Construction workers, office employees, real people living real lives. The bell above the door chimed as she entered. Every conversation stopped. Rebecca was overdressed in her designer maternity dress and diamond earrings. A visitor from another world. "You must be Rebecca." The voice was softer than Rebecca had expected. No challenge in it, no malice, just gentle resignation. Lily Parker stood behind the counter, early 20s, natural beauty that didn't need expensive makeup or salon treatments. The kind of fresh-faced prettiness that made Rebecca feel ancient at 32. "You texted me," Rebecca said. "Yeah." Lily poured coffee into a white ceramic mug without asking. "Decaf, for the baby." She slid it across the counter. "John talks about you, about the pregnancy." John, not Jonathan, never Jonathan. Rebecca's hand moved instinctively to her rounded belly. "What else does John tell you?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "That he's leaving you, after the baby comes. He's already got the papers drawn up." Mechi. The coffee mug slipped in Rebecca's hand. Hot liquid splashed across the Formica counter. Brown stains spread like blood. "I'm sorry," Lily said, grabbing paper napkins. "I thought you should know. Before what?" "Before he asks you to sign anything. He's been planning this for a while." The diner faded around Rebecca. She was back in law school. Constitutional law with Professor Williams. Never sign anything without reading it carefully. Never trust anyone completely. Never give up your power. But she had given up her power, piece by piece, signature by signature. "Why are you telling me this?" Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. Lily dabbed at the spilled coffee. "Because I didn't know about you being pregnant. He said you were separated, that the marriage was over years ago." She looked up. "And then I saw the pregnancy announcement in the society pages." Rebecca's world tilted. "What announcement?" Lily pulled out her phone, showed her the screenshot. Sterling Innovations, CEO and wife expecting first child. The photo was from last month's charity auction. Rebecca in emerald green silk. Jonathan's hand on her belly, both of them smiling for the cameras. The perfect couple expecting their perfect child. "He's been lying to both of us," Lily whispered. Rebecca studied the young woman's face. Genuine tears. Real pain. This wasn't some calculating mistress trying to destroy a marriage. This was another victim. "How long?" Rebecca asked. 6 months. He comes in after midnight sometimes. Says he can't sleep. We talk." Lily's voice was soft. "He told me his wife didn't understand him. That you were cold, distant." Cold, distant. Rebecca almost laughed. She had reorganized her entire life around Jonathan's needs. Given up her career, moved across the country, learned to smile at his mother's passive-aggressive comments. "He set you up in an apartment," Rebecca said. "It wasn't a question." Lily nodded. "He said it was temporary, until his divorce was final." She looked down at her hands. "I believed him." Rebecca thought about the folder in Jonathan's office labeled Lily, the apartment lease, the credit cards, the systematic way he had compartmentalized his life. "I'm not angry with you," Rebecca said. Lily looked surprised. "You're not? You're not the first. And you probably won't be the last. The words hung in the air between them. Rebecca felt something she hadn't felt in years. Clarity. Not the fog of pregnancy hormones or domestic routine. Sharp, clean clarity. "What are you going to do?" Lily asked. Rebecca stood up carefully. Her belly made quick movements impossible, but her mind was moving fast. Calculating. Planning. "I'm going to be smart," she said. She walked to her car and sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, watching ordinary people through the diner windows. A teenager taking orders. An elderly couple sharing pie. People who lived honest lives. Her phone rang. Jonathan's name on the screen. For the first time in their marriage, she didn't answer. The voicemail notification popped up immediately. She didn't listen to it. Instead, she started her car and drove home. To the house that suddenly felt like a crime scene. Everything looked different now. The perfect furniture, the expensive art, the life she had thought was hers. It was all built on lies. The silence in Rebecca's car was deafening. Jonathan's unanswered call had gone to voicemail, but she couldn't bring herself to listen to it. Not yet. She drove home slowly, taking the long way through their exclusive neighborhood. Massive houses behind iron gates, manicured lawns that cost more than most people's cars. The world she had married into, but never quite belonged to. At home, she walked straight to Jonathan's office. The door was locked, as always. The room she had been banned from since their wedding day. "Financial documents are so boring, sweetheart," Jonathan had always said. "Let me handle the money stuff. You focus on making our home beautiful." Rebecca found the spare key exactly where she expected it, inside the antique globe that had belonged to Jonathan's father. Her hands shook as she turned the brass meridian and retrieved the small silver key. The office smelled like expensive leather and Jonathan's cologne. Mahogany desk, matching file cabinets, a wall of business awards and photographs with politicians. She had seen this room 100 times through the doorway, but never stepped inside. Now it felt like entering a tomb. She started with the desk drawers. Her law school training kicked in. Be systematic. Be thorough. Document everything. The first drawer held typical office supplies: pens, paper clips, business cards. The second drawer made her blood freeze. A manila folder labeled Lily in Jonathan's precise handwriting. Inside, a complete dossier. Apartment lease agreements in Jonathan's name. Utility bills. Credit card statements. Even a copy of Lily's birth certificate. "He researched her," Rebecca whispered, "like a business acquisition." The lease was for a studio apartment downtown. Rent paid monthly by automatic transfer from one of Jonathan's accounts. The credit card had a $5,000 limit. Enough to make a young waitress feel cared for, but not enough to create real independence. Rebecca photographed everything with her phone. Her hands were steady now. This was evidence. This was what she understood. The computer was password protected. Rebecca knew Jonathan's patterns. She tried their wedding anniversary. Wrong. She tried his birthday. Wrong. She tried the date Sterling Innovations went public. The screen unlocked. Email after email filled the monitor. Messages between Jonathan and Lily. Sweet at first, then increasingly possessive. "Missing you already. Can't wait to start our real life together. Just a few more months and we'll be free." Rebecca scrolled deeper into the correspondence. Her stomach churned as the full scope of Jonathan's deception became clear. He had been planning this for months, maybe years. One email, dated 3 weeks ago, made her blood turn to ice. "The prenup is ironclad, but we need to be careful about timing. If she contests after the baby is born, things get complicated. Better to initiate proceedings before delivery. Less emotional manipulation possible." Emotional manipulation. He was calling her pregnancy emotional manipulation. Rebecca's hands clenched into fists. The baby kicked sharply, responding to her elevated heart rate. She forced herself to breathe, to stay calm, to keep gathering evidence. She opened Jonathan's financial software. Account after account appeared on the screen. checking, savings, investment portfolios. And then, buried in a subfolder labeled International Holdings, she found what she was looking for: Swiss bank accounts, Cayman Islands investments, real estate purchases in Lily's name. Millions of dollars moved piece by piece over the past 6 months. Son of a bitch, Rebecca said aloud. She remembered signing papers last year. Jonathan had presented them as routine trust documents. Estate planning, he had called it. Tax optimization. She had trusted him and signed without reading carefully. Now she understood. Those documents had given him power of attorney over certain assets. Legal permission to move money without her knowledge. Rebecca photographed every screen. Bank account numbers, transaction histories, email threads, a complete record of systematic financial fraud. Her phone buzzed. Jonathan calling again. This time she answered. Rebecca, where are you? I've been calling for hours. His voice sounded normal, concerned, the same tone he used when asking about her doctor's appointments or what she wanted for dinner. I'm home, she said. Her voice was steady, controlled. Just resting. Are you feeling all right? You sound different. I'm fine, just tired. The baby was very active today. Well, rest up. I'll be late again tonight. This Singapore deal is really heating up. Rebecca stared at an email from Lily sent 20 minutes ago. Miss you already. Tonight can't come soon enough. Of course, Rebecca said. These international deals are so important. Rebecca, are you sure you're okay? You sound perfect, she interrupted. Everything's perfect. After hanging up, Rebecca sat in Jonathan's leather chair and looked around his private kingdom. The wall of awards, the photographs with powerful men, the life he had built on lies and manipulation. She opened her laptop and Googled Best Divorce Attorney California Asset Hiding. The first result made her smile for the first time all day. David Coleman, former prosecutor specializing in complex financial fraud and high net worth divorce. The photo showed a familiar face, older now, wearing expensive suits instead of thrift store button-downs, but unmistakably her study partner from Stanford Law. The one who had always said she was too smart to waste her life playing housewife to some rich man's son. The one who had been right all along. Rebecca picked up her phone and started typing an email. Her fingers flew across the keyboard with a speed and precision she hadn't felt in years. She was remembering who she used to be, who she still was, underneath all the designer clothes and charity committees. She was Rebecca Walsh, summa cum laude from Stanford Law, and she was about to remind everyone, including herself, exactly what that meant. Rebecca spent the night staring at David Coleman's law firm website. His photograph showed the same intense brown eyes she remembered from law school, but everything else had changed. Gone were the cheap glasses and secondhand shirts. Now he wore custom suits and radiated the confidence of a man who had never lost a case. Specializing in cases where spouses attempt to hide assets during divorce proceedings, his biography read, no case too complex, no offshore account too obscure. At 12:47 in the morning, Rebecca sent the email. Brief, professional, desperate. David, it's Rebecca Sterling, née Walsh. I need help. It's urgent. Her phone rang at 6:15 the next morning. Rebecca was already awake, staring at the ceiling while Jonathan showered. Becca? David's voice was exactly as she remembered. Warm, slightly gravelly. The voice that had talked her through constitutional law and evidence procedure. David. Her voice cracked slightly. Thank you for calling. What's going on? Your email sounded... Jonathan's leaving me. I'm 7 months pregnant, and he's been hiding money. Silence on the other end, then a sharp intake of breath. How much money? 50 million, maybe more. Zero. Jesus Christ. A pause. Where are you right now? Home. He thinks I don't know anything. Good. Keep it that way. David's voice shifted into professional mode. Don't confront him. Don't access any more of his files. Don't change anything about your routine. Can you meet me this afternoon? Yes. The Starbucks on 5th and Morrison. 2 o'clock. And Becca? Bring everything you found. After Jonathan left for work, Rebecca spent the morning organizing her evidence. Screenshots of bank accounts, photographs of documents, email threads between Jonathan and Lily. She printed everything and put it in a manila folder, just like the old days when she had been building cases instead of planning dinner parties. The coffee shop was crowded with the lunch rush when she arrived. Rebecca felt conspicuous in her designer maternity dress. But David had chosen well, a public place where they could talk without being overheard. He arrived exactly at 2. Rebecca recognized his walk before she saw his face. The same purposeful stride that had carried him through 3 years of law school on 4 hours of sleep and pure determination. "You look good," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Pregnancy suits you." Rebecca almost laughed. "I look like a whale wearing pearls." "You look like someone who's about to take her life back." David opened his laptop. "Show me what you found." Rebecca slid the folder across the table. David's expression grew darker with each page. Bank statements, account transfers, email evidence of systematic asset hiding. "This is good," he said finally. "This is really good. He's been incredibly sloppy." "Sloppy how?" "Electronic paper trail. Emails discussing asset hiding while you're pregnant, which shows intent to defraud you of support during a vulnerable time." David looked up from the documents. "How's your relationship with his mother?" "Margaret? She tolerates me." "Why?" "Because about half this money came from Sterling Family Trust that she controls. If we can prove Jonathan's been lying to her about the state of your marriage, she might be willing to help us claw back the assets." Rebecca thought about Margaret Sterling. Ice-cold blue eyes, Chanel suits, a woman who valued the family reputation above everything else. "She knows about Lily," Rebecca said. "I'm sure of it. But does she know about the money Jonathan's been moving? Does she know he's planning to abandon a pregnant wife and expose the family to scandal?" David was right. Margaret Sterling might overlook her son's infidelity, but she would never forgive him for embarrassing the family publicly. "What do you need me to do?" Rebecca asked. "First, we need more evidence. Financial records going back further. I'm going to give you a contact." David slid a business card across the table. "Marcus Rodriguez, private investigator, former FBI, specializes in financial crimes." Rebecca looked at the card. Simple black text on white paper. No fancy graphics or slogans. "Second," David continued, "we need to document everything Jonathan does from now on. Every lie, every secret meeting, every dollar that moves." "And third," David's smile was sharp as a blade. "Third, we're going to let him hang himself." Rebecca drove home slowly, taking the scenic route through the hills overlooking the ocean. She stopped at the same park where she and Jonathan used to jog together during their first year of marriage. Before she had gotten pregnant, before she had given up running to avoid stress on the baby, she sat on a bench and watched young mothers push their children on swings, normal women with normal lives, women who didn't have to worry about their husbands hiding millions of dollars in offshore accounts. For the first time in months, Rebecca felt like she could breathe. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." She typed back, "Of course. Love you." The lie came easily now. When she got home, Margaret Sterling's black Bentley was parked in the circular driveway. Rebecca's heart skipped, but she forced herself to walk calmly to the front door. This was about to get interesting. Margaret was sitting in the living room like she owned it, which technically she did. The house was part of the Sterling Family Trust, along with most of their major assets. "Rebecca, darling." Margaret's voice carried the authority of 4 generations of old money. "You look tired. Are you taking your vitamins?" "Growing a baby is exhausting," Rebecca replied, settling carefully into the chair across from her mother-in-law. "Indeed." Margaret smoothed her Chanel skirt. "I wanted to discuss the nursery. I've hired a decorator, someone who understands the Sterling aesthetic." Rebecca automatically straightened the magazines on the coffee table. House Beautiful, Architectural Digest. The same publications that had been there since she moved in 5 years ago. "That's very thoughtful," Rebecca said. "But Jonathan and I haven't really discussed." Jonathan is busy building the company, Margaret interrupted. These domestic details fall to the women, as they should. There was something in Margaret's tone. A test. Rebecca had always suspected her mother-in-law knew more than she revealed about Jonathan's activities. Of course, Rebecca said carefully. I'm sure your choice will be perfect. Margaret studied her with those penetrating blue eyes. You know, Rebecca, I've always admired your composure. So many young women today are emotional, demanding. They don't understand that marriage is a partnership, not a fairy tale. Rebecca felt the baby kick, a reminder of everything she stood to lose. Not just money, respectability, security, the life she had built after sacrificing her career. Marriage does require compromise, Rebecca agreed. Yes, and sometimes wives must look the other way, for the greater good of the family. Margaret's words were surgical, precise. My late husband had his diversions, but we maintained our dignity. Our family name remained untarnished. The message was clear. Margaret knew about Lily, had probably known about all of Jonathan's affairs, but as long as Rebecca stayed quiet, the family reputation would remain intact. I understand, Rebecca said. I hope you do. Margaret stood and retrieved her Hermes bag. The sterling name has survived worse than youthful indiscretions. We weather storms by standing together, not by creating scenes. After Margaret left, Rebecca sat alone in the pristine living room. Everything was becoming clear. Margaret controlled the family money. If Jonathan divorced Rebecca publicly, his infidelity would become scandal fodder for the society pages. The sterling reputation would suffer. But if Rebecca stayed quiet, accepted whatever settlement they offered, signed whatever papers they put in front of her, her phone buzzed. A text from David. Can you meet Marcus tonight? He found something important. Rebecca typed back quickly. Yes, what did he find? The response made her blood run cold. Jonathan's not planning to marry Lily. He's planning to eliminate her, too. Rebecca stared at the message. Her hands began to shake. Another text followed immediately. She doesn't know she's about to become a liability. Rain hammered against the windows of Marcus Rodriguez's office at 9 o'clock that night. Rebecca had expected a stereotypical private investigator's office. Dusty, cluttered, filled with cigarette smoke and cynicism. Instead, Marcus's space was immaculate. Computer monitors lined one wall. File cabinets were labeled with military precision. The man himself was nothing like the private eyes in movies. Sharp-eyed, professional, methodical. David filled me in on the basics, Marcus said, gesturing for Rebecca to sit. Your husband's been very busy. He slid a thick folder across his desk. Rebecca opened it and felt her stomach drop. Photographs, bank statements, a timeline that painted a picture she never could have imagined. Lily Parker isn't his first waitress, Marcus began. 3 years ago, there was Amanda Sullivan, cocktail server at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Before that, Kelly Matthews, bartender at his hotel in San Francisco. Rebecca stared at the photographs. Young women, all beautiful, all working in service jobs, all discarded like broken toys. What happened to them? Amanda got a $50,000 settlement in a non-disclosure agreement after she threatened to go public about their relationship. Kelly got a job transfer to Seattle and a similar payout. Marcus pulled out another document. But here's what's interesting. Both women had something in common. Hey, what? They both thought they were the only one, and they both thought Jonathan was going to marry them. Rebecca felt something shift inside her chest. Not heartbreak anymore. Something colder and more useful. Clarity. This is a pattern, she said. Exactly. He finds young women in vulnerable situations, women who need financial security. He promises them a future, sets them up in apartments, makes them financially dependent. Then when he's ready to move on, he destroys them. Marcus nodded grimly. Amanda Sullivan tried to contest the non-disclosure agreement. Jonathan's lawyers buried her in litigation until she couldn't afford to fight anymore. She lost her job, her apartment, everything. Rebecca thought about Lily's tears, the genuine pain in her eyes when she realized Jonathan had been lying to her too. But Lily contacted me, Rebecca said. She warned me. That's different. Which makes her more dangerous to him. She has a conscience. She's not willing to stay quiet. David appeared in the doorway, shaking rain from his expensive coat. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was murder. He took one look at Rebecca's face. You told her about the pattern? Most of it, Marcus confirmed. There's more? Rebecca asked. David sat down heavily. The offshore accounts aren't just hidden marital assets. They're connected to a much larger scheme. Jonathan's been using Sterling Innovations as a personal piggy bank, moving money through questionable investments. Illegal investments? Securities fraud, tax evasion. The SEC has been investigating Sterling Innovations for 6 months. They just haven't gone public yet. Rebecca's lawyer brain kicked into overdrive. He's planning to run. That's our theory, Marcus agreed. Clean out everything he can access, divorce you quickly to avoid asset division, and disappear to a country without extradition treaties. With Lily, David and Marcus exchanged a meaningful look. What? Rebecca demanded. We think he's planning to eliminate all potential witnesses, David said gently, including Lily. She knows too much about his financial arrangements. She's seen him move money, heard confidential phone calls about his business dealings. Rebecca started organizing the papers in front of her without thinking, stacking them by date, by importance, her lawyer instincts taking over from the chaos. So what do? We beat him at his own game, David said. But it's going to be risky. We need you to act completely normal until we have everything we need for court. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3, Rebecca calculated quickly. The baby's due in 6 weeks, which is why we need to move fast. Marcus leaned forward. Rebecca, I need to ask you something important. Are you prepared to see this through to the end? Because once we start this process, there's no going back. Jonathan will fight dirty. Rebecca thought about Lily's warning text, about Amanda Sullivan buried under legal bills, about Kelly Matthews exiled to Seattle, about all the young women who had trusted Jonathan Sterling and been destroyed for their faith in him. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for all of them. I'm ready, she said. David's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen and his face went white. What is it? Rebecca asked. Wire transfer alert. Jonathan just moved $20 million to Geneva, $8 million to the Caymans, $15 million to a numbered account in Switzerland. Rebecca felt the baby kick sharply, responding to her spike in adrenaline. What does that mean? It means he's not waiting for divorce proceedings, Marcus said, already reaching for his laptop. He's liquidating assets right now, tonight. Rebecca's phone rang, Jonathan's name on the screen. Answer it, David whispered. Act completely normal. Rebecca took a deep breath and picked up. Hi, honey. Still at the office? Actually, I'm heading home soon. Jonathan's voice sounded different, lighter, almost cheerful. How are you feeling? Tired. The baby's been very active tonight. Well, get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. The line went dead. Rebecca stared at her phone. Tomorrow's going to be a big day, she repeated to David and Marcus. Shit, David said. He's serving you divorce papers tomorrow. Rebecca's hands trembled as she set down her phone. Everything was accelerating beyond their control. We're out of time, she whispered. Marcus was already typing furiously on his laptop. Not necessarily. David, can you get an emergency restraining order? At this hour? Maybe, if we can find a judge who owes me a favor. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He just left the office. Says he has something important to take care of. Be careful. L. Lily. Still trying to protect her even now. Rebecca showed the message to David and Marcus. She's watching out for you, Marcus observed. Which is exactly why she's in danger, David added grimly. Rebecca made a decision that surprised even herself. I need to warn her. Rebecca drove home through empty streets, her mind racing faster than her BMW. Every traffic light seemed to take forever. Every turn felt like driving deeper into a trap. When she pulled into her driveway, Jonathan's Tesla was already there. Lights spilled from the kitchen windows, warm and inviting. For a moment it looked like home, like the life she had thought she was living. Inside, Jonathan was making tea. Earl Grey, her favorite. He had changed out of his work clothes into the charcoal cashmere sweater she had bought him for Christmas. The perfect husband performing the perfect evening routine. "You look exhausted," he said, handing her the delicate china cup. "Rough day?" Rebecca accepted the tea and forced herself to sit at the kitchen island. Everything felt surreal, like she was watching someone else's life through a window. "Just pregnancy things," she said. "Doctor's appointment ran long." "Everything okay with the baby?" "Perfect. Strong heartbeat. Doctor says she's going to be a fighter." Jonathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's wonderful. She'll get that from her mother." The comment hung in the air between them. Rebecca studied her husband's face, looking for signs of the man she had fallen in love with 7 years ago. The ambitious young entrepreneur who had swept her off her feet at a Stanford alumni mixer. That man had either never existed or had died somewhere along the way. "Jonathan," she said carefully, "do you ever think about the choices we've made? About whether we're happy?" He blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Why would you ask that?" "I don't know. Pregnancy makes you philosophical, I guess. I just wonder sometimes if we're living the lives we actually want." "We have everything we ever dreamed of," Jonathan said, but his voice sounded strained. "Success, security, a beautiful home, a baby on the way." Rebecca automatically rinsed her teacup and placed it in the dishwasher. The same routine she had followed for 5 years. But tonight, the familiar motion felt mechanical, like she was watching someone else perform these domestic rituals. "I think I'll take a bath," she said. "Good idea. I'll be up in a little while." Rebecca climbed the stairs slowly, her hand trailing along the polished banister. Everything in their house was perfect, expensive, carefully curated to project success and happiness. None of it felt real anymore. In the master bathroom, she ran water in the enormous soaking tub. The bathroom was larger than her first apartment in law school. Marble everything, gold fixtures, a television built into the wall. She sank into the warm water and let her mind drift. Not to the future Jonathan had planned for her. Broke, disgraced, alone with a newborn. To the future she was going to create for herself. Her phone buzzed on the marble counter. A text from David. "Emergency hearing scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Judge Walsh granted restraining order on assets. Can you be there?" Rebecca typed back quickly. "Yes. Don't let Jonathan know you're coming. Act surprised when process server shows up." Another text, this one from Lily. "He came by the diner tonight. Seemed agitated, kept checking his phone. Something's wrong." Rebecca's heart rate spiked. She typed back, "Are you safe?" "For now, but I'm scared. He's different. Desperate." Through the bathroom door, Rebecca heard Jonathan's footsteps on the stairs, but they stopped at his office instead of continuing to their bedroom. Then she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. The paper shredder. Jonathan was destroying evidence. Right now, while she sat in their bathtub, he was eliminating any trace of his crimes. Rebecca climbed out of the tub as quietly as possible and wrapped herself in a robe. She pressed her ear to the bathroom door. The shredder ran for 30 seconds, then stopped, then started again. He was being thorough. She texted David. "He's shredding documents right now, in his office." The response came immediately. "Don't interfere. Let him think he's destroying evidence. We already have what we need." But Rebecca knew better. Jonathan was meticulous, paranoid. He wouldn't leave anything to chance. The shredder finally stopped at 2 in the morning. Jonathan's footsteps moved from his office to their bedroom. Rebecca pretended to be asleep as he slipped under the covers. Neither of them slept. At 6 a.m., Jonathan's alarm buzzed. He dressed quickly in his most expensive suit, the one he wore for hostile corporate takeovers and contract negotiations. Battle armor for whatever he had planned. "I'll be late tonight," he said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "Legal meetings, boring contract stuff." Rebecca watched him prepare for war while pretending to be an innocent bystander. "Of course," she said. "I might have lunch with Sarah. She wants to discuss baby shower plans." Jonathan paused, studying her reflection in the mirror. That sounds nice. Good for you to stay social. After he left, Rebecca called Sarah immediately. I need you to meet me for lunch today, she said without preamble. At Pierre's around noon. Rebecca, what's going on? You sound… I can't explain over the phone, but I need you to be able to honestly say we had lunch together if anyone asks. Are you in some kind of trouble? I'm getting out of trouble. Sarah arrived at Pierre's looking worried. Her blonde hair was pulled back in what she called her mom bun. Practical but not particularly stylish. She had dark circles under her eyes from dealing with 2 toddlers and a husband who traveled constantly for work. Okay, what's the emergency? Sarah demanded before she had even taken off her jacket. Jonathan's having an affair. Sarah's face went through a rapid series of expressions. Shock, anger, something that looked almost like relief. How do you know? I have proof. Photos, emails, financial records showing he's been supporting her. What are you going to do? I'm going to take him for every penny he's worth. Sarah leaned back in her chair and smiled for the first time since sitting down. Good. I never liked him anyway. Rebecca stared at her best friend. Why didn't you ever say anything? Would you have listened? Probably not. Rebecca had been so determined to make her marriage work, so committed to the life she had chosen. She had ignored every red flag, every warning sign, every well-meaning piece of advice. I should have listened, Rebecca said. You're listening now. That's what matters. At 1:45, Rebecca sat in David's office, her hands folded over her rounded belly. She was wearing her most conservative dress, her wedding ring, and the pearl earrings Jonathan's mother had given her. The perfect picture of a betrayed pregnant wife. The process server should be at your house right now, David said, checking his expensive watch. Jonathan's going to get divorce papers, but he's also getting something he doesn't expect. What? Restraining order preventing him from moving any additional assets, subpoenas for all his financial records going back 5 years, and notice that we're seeking an emergency hearing on spousal support and asset protection. Rebecca's phone rang, Jonathan's name on the screen. Don't answer, David advised. Let him leave messages. We want to document his reaction. The phone rang again immediately, then a third time. He's panicking, David observed with satisfaction. 3 voicemail notifications appeared. Rebecca played them on speaker. Rebecca, I just got served with some papers. This is obviously some kind of mistake. Call me immediately so we can sort this out. The second message was less controlled. Rebecca, where are you? We need to talk about this ridiculous restraining order. Call me back right now. The third was barely coherent. Damn it, Rebecca, pick up your phone. This is completely insane. You're being manipulated by someone. I'm coming home. Rebecca felt a strange calm settle over her. The fear was gone, replaced by something harder and more useful. Determination. He's scared, she said. He should be. David closed his laptop. Judge Walsh granted everything we requested. His accounts are frozen as of 1 hour ago. All of them. Every account we could identify, including the offshore ones. The Swiss banks don't like dealing with frozen asset orders, but they like criminal investigations even less. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text from Lily. He called me crying, says you're trying to destroy him, wants me to lie for him in court. I told him to go to hell. Another text followed immediately. He's not thinking straight. Be careful tonight. Rebecca showed the messages to David. She's tougher than he thought, David observed. She's tougher than any of us thought. David's secretary appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Mr. Coleman, Mr. Sterling is in the lobby. He's demanding to see his wife. Very loudly. Should I call security? Rebecca surprised herself with her answer. Let him come up. I want to see him. The elevator doors opened with a sharp ding. Expensive shoes on marble floors. Jonathan Sterling in full fury, his perfect composure finally cracking under pressure. Rebecca! His voice was tight with barely controlled rage. What the hell is this? He slammed a stack of legal papers on David's desk. Divorce petition, asset freezing order, subpoenas for financial records. The carefully constructed walls of his secret life crumbling in real time. Hello, Jonathan, Rebecca said calmly. You remember David Coleman from Stanford. Jonathan's gray eyes narrowed as recognition hit. The scholarship kid who used to follow you around like a puppy. He turned back to Rebecca with venom in his voice. I should have known you'd run to your law school boyfriend the moment things got difficult. Sit down, Rebecca said. Please. Something in her tone made him pause. For just a moment, the old Jonathan surfaced. The man who had once listened to her opinions, who had valued her intelligence before deciding it was more convenient to have a decorative wife. He sat. I know about Lily, Rebecca said simply. Jonathan's face went white. All the blood drained from his cheeks, leaving him looking older than his 45 years. Rebecca, whatever you think you know, I know about Amanda Sullivan and Kelly Matthews. I know about the apartments you've rented, the credit cards you've opened, the money you've moved to Switzerland. Rebecca felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Power. Not the illusion of influence that came from being Jonathan Sterling's wife, but actual control over her own destiny. I know you've been planning to abandon me since before I got pregnant. I know about the prenup modifications you had me sign without reading. I know about your plans to flee the country. Jonathan looked at David with pure hatred. You did this. You poisoned her against me. I provided legal counsel to a client whose husband has been committing systematic financial fraud, David replied evenly. Nothing more. This is ridiculous, Jonathan snapped, standing abruptly. Rebecca, you're not thinking clearly. Pregnancy hormones affect women's judgment. You know that. Don't. Rebecca's voice cut through the air like a blade. Don't you dare try to gaslight me right now. Jonathan blinked, clearly shocked by her tone. In 5 years of marriage, Rebecca had never spoken to him that way. I was a lawyer before I was your wife, Rebecca continued. I graduated summa cum laude from Stanford Law. I can read financial documents. I can understand wire transfer records. I can follow an evidence trail better than most people you'll ever meet. But you gave all that up, Jonathan said desperately. You chose to be my wife, to be a mother, to build a life with me. You convinced me to give it up. There's a significant difference. Rebecca organized the papers in front of her with steady hands. Each document placed exactly where she wanted it, her lawyer instincts returning after 5 years of forced dormancy. What do you want? Jonathan asked finally. 50% of all marital assets, including the money you've hidden offshore, plus child support calculated on your actual income, not whatever reduced salary you were planning to pay yourself after transferring company ownership. That's insane. The prenup clearly states. The prenup is void, David interrupted. Fraud vitiates all contracts. You concealed material information about your financial situation and your intentions when you had Rebecca sign those documents. Jonathan's jaw worked silently. Rebecca could see his mind racing, looking for angles, searching for leverage he no longer possessed. What about our child? He said suddenly. You can't seriously want our daughter to grow up in a broken home, knowing her parents destroyed each other in court. I don't want to destroy you, Rebecca said, and realized it was true. I just want what's fair. Fair? Jonathan's voice rose to near shouting. You think it's fair to take half of everything I've worked for? I built Sterling Innovations from nothing. I created that wealth, with money from family trusts controlled by your mother, David pointed out calmly. Money that can be reclaimed if the trustee determines you violated the moral character clauses. Margaret would never. Margaret Sterling has already retained her own counsel to review the trust documents, David said. She's particularly interested in the sections about family stability and public scandal. Jonathan sagged in his chair like a balloon losing air. For the first time in their marriage, Rebecca saw him as he really was. Not the powerful executive she had married, but a weak man who had never learned to take responsibility for his choices. The baby, he said quietly. What about the baby? What about her? She'll grow up thinking her father is a monster. She'll grow up knowing her father made mistakes, Rebecca corrected, and that her mother was strong enough to protect them both. Jonathan looked between Rebecca and David, searching for mercy he no longer deserved. I loved you, he said finally. No, Rebecca replied. You loved the idea of me, the brilliant lawyer who gave up her career to support your ambitions, the perfect wife who never questioned your decisions. You never loved the real me. Jonathan's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it and his face went even paler. What now? Rebecca asked. The board is calling an emergency meeting, he said hoarsely, for tomorrow morning. I know, Rebecca said. Your mother requested my presence. Jonathan stared at her in shock. You're working with my mother? I'm not working with anyone. I'm simply protecting my interests and those of my unborn child. David's phone chimed with a text message. He glanced at it and smiled. What? Rebecca asked. The SEC just announced their investigation into Sterling Innovations. It's going public tomorrow morning. Jonathan's world was collapsing in real time. Company under federal investigation, wife divorcing him publicly, assets frozen, mother turning against him. This isn't over, he said, standing unsteadily. Yes, it is, Rebecca replied. You just haven't accepted it yet. After Jonathan left, Rebecca sat in David's office feeling strangely empty. Not sad, not angry, just tired. How do you feel? David asked. Like I've been holding my breath for 5 years and finally remembered how to exhale. Her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret Sterling. Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Wear the Navy suit. We have work to do. Rebecca showed the message to David. Your mother-in-law is a formidable ally, he observed. She's not my ally, Rebecca corrected. She's protecting the family reputation. I just happen to be on the right side of that equation for once. Rebecca drove home through the early evening traffic, her mind clearer than it had been in months. The house looked different when she pulled into the driveway. Not like a prison anymore. Like a place she might actually want to live. Jonathan's Tesla was nowhere to be seen. Inside, the silence felt peaceful instead of oppressive. Rebecca made herself a cup of tea and sat in the living room, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. Her phone rang, Lily's name on the screen. How did it go? Lily asked. It's over, Rebecca said. He signed the papers. All of them. Everything. Full asset division, child support, even an agreement to stay away from you. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Thank you, she said finally. Thank you, Rebecca replied, for warning me, for being brave enough to tell the truth. What will you do now? Rebecca touched her belly and felt the baby kick, strong and determined, just like her mother. I'm going to remember who I used to be, she said, and figure out who I want to become. The Sterling Innovations boardroom felt like a courtroom at 9 o'clock the next morning. Rebecca entered wearing her Navy maternity suit, 7 months pregnant, and carrying herself like the lawyer she had once been. The entire board was present, 12 gray-haired men in expensive suits, looking uncomfortable and slightly terrified. Margaret Sterling sat at the head of the conference table like a queen presiding over an execution. Jonathan sat at the far end, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled. His tie was crooked. This was not the controlled executive who had built Sterling Innovations into a billion-dollar company. Thank you all for coming, Margaret began, her voice cutting through the tension like ice. We're here to address serious allegations regarding the conduct of our chief executive officer. For the next hour, David methodically presented evidence. Wire transfers to personal accounts, hidden assets in offshore banks, a pattern of financial fraud that stretched back years. The board members' faces grew progressively paler as the scope of Jonathan's crimes became clear. Jonathan's lawyer, a different man than yesterday, Rebecca noticed, tried to mount a defense, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records didn't lie. Email trails were permanent. Wire transfers left digital footprints that couldn't be erased. The board has voted, Margaret announced finally. Effective immediately, Jonathan Sterling is removed as chief executive officer and suspended from all board positions pending a complete financial audit. Jonathan's face crumbled. Mother, please, don't. Margaret's voice could have frozen the Pacific Ocean. You've brought shame on this family and endangered this company. You're fortunate that criminal charges haven't been filed. Yet. Rebecca felt no triumph, just a quiet satisfaction that justice was being served. Not revenge, not destruction, simply consequences for choices made. What happens to my stock options? Jonathan asked David. You forfeit them under the morals clause of your employment contract, David replied, sliding papers across the polished table. However, you'll retain your trust fund distributions, assuming your mother doesn't decide to revoke those as well. And if I refuse to sign this settlement agreement, then we proceed to trial, publicly, with all this evidence entered into the court record. The Securities and Exchange Commission will become involved. The Internal Revenue Service will launch their own investigation. Lily Parker will be subpoenaed to testify about your financial arrangements. Jonathan picked up the gold pen with trembling hands, the same pen he had used to sign million-dollar contracts and business deals. Now he was using it to sign away his freedom. Rebecca watched her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, destroy the life he had built on lies and manipulation. She felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only relief that it was finally over. 1 week later, Rebecca sat in Mel's all-night diner at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. The lunch crowd had cleared out, leaving just a few regulars and the gentle sounds of coffee brewing and conversations humming. Lily brought her decaf coffee without being asked, along with a slice of apple pie she hadn't ordered. "On the house," Lily said, sliding into the booth across from her. "How are you feeling?" "Like I can breathe again," Rebecca said honestly. "And the baby?" "Strong, active. The doctor says she's going to be a fighter." Lily smiled, and Rebecca could see why Jonathan had been attracted to her. Not just her beauty, but her warmth, her genuine kindness that couldn't be faked or bought. "She'll get that from her mother," Lily said. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the ordinary rhythm of life flow around them. A trucker reading a newspaper, a young mother feeding her toddler, people living honest lives without secrets or deception. "What will you do now?" Rebecca asked. "I'm going back to school," Lily said. "Nursing program at the community college. It's something I always wanted to do, but never had the money." "That's wonderful. Jonathan offered to pay for it, before everything came out, part of his grand plan to keep me quiet." Rebecca wasn't surprised. Jonathan had always believed every problem could be solved with money. Every person could be bought if you found the right price. "I'm glad you said no," Rebecca said. "Me too. I want to earn it myself, the right way." "What about you?" Lily asked. "What comes next?" Rebecca touched her belly and felt the baby respond with a sharp kick. "First, I'm going to have this little fighter. Then I'm thinking about opening my own law practice." "What kind of law?" "Family law, maybe. Helping women who find themselves in impossible situations." "Women like us?" "Women like us." Shutkin. Rebecca organized the sugar packets on the table while she thought. Not from nervous habit this time, but because she was planning, building something new from the ruins of her old life. "Rebecca," Lily's voice was hesitant. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you angry? About Jonathan, I mean. About what he did to both of us?" Rebecca considered the question carefully. "I was angry. Furious, actually. But now I'm just grateful." "Grateful? If Jonathan hadn't done what he did, I might have spent the rest of my life being his wife instead of being myself. I might never have remembered how strong I actually am." Lily reached across the table and squeezed Rebecca's hand. "You didn't just remember. You became stronger than you ever were before." As Rebecca drove home to the house that now legally belonged to her, she thought about transformation. Not the revenge fantasy she might have imagined 6 months ago, but something deeper and more meaningful. She had been so afraid of losing the life she had built that she had almost missed the opportunity to build a better one. Her phone rang as she pulled into her driveway. David's name on the screen. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Rich," she said, and they both laughed. "And emotionally?" "Free," she said, and realized it was completely true. The baby kicked in agreement. Rebecca looked at the house that had once felt like a beautiful prison, but now felt like possibility. Tomorrow she would start planning her new law practice. Next week she would begin interviewing nannies. Next month she would give birth to her daughter. But today she was simply Rebecca Sterling. Not Jonathan's wife, not Margaret's daughter-in-law, just herself. And that was enough. 6 months later, Rebecca Sterling stood in her new office on the 20th floor of a downtown building, looking out at the city that had once seemed so intimidating. Now it looked like opportunity. The brass nameplate on her door read, "Sterling Family Law, protecting what matters most." She had kept Jonathan's name for professional reasons. It carried weight in legal circles, and she had earned the right to use it. Her daughter Emma slept peacefully in a baby carrier on the desk, 4 months old, with Rebecca's dark hair and Jonathan's gray eyes, but with a determination that was entirely her own. The office was smaller than Jonathan's executive suite at Sterling Innovations, but it felt infinitely larger. Floor-to-ceiling windows, No locked doors, no secrets hidden in file cabinets. Rebecca's phone rang. Her secretary's voice came through the intercom. "Mrs. Sterling, your 3 o'clock appointment is here. A Mrs. Amanda Sullivan." Rebecca smiled. "Send her in." Amanda Sullivan looked nervous as she entered the office. Mid-30s, professionally dressed, but with the hollow look of someone who had been through a war. "Thank you for seeing me," Amanda said, settling into the chair across from Rebecca's desk. "I saw the news coverage of your divorce, about how you exposed your husband's pattern of financial abuse. How can I help you?" "My ex-husband did something similar. Not as much money, but the same tactics, making me financially dependent, then discarding me when he found someone younger." Amanda's voice grew stronger as she spoke. "I signed a non-disclosure agreement, but after seeing what you accomplished, you want to fight back. I want justice, not just for me, but for the other women he's done this to." Rebecca looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her carrier. This was why she had opened her practice. Not just to help herself, but to help women like Amanda. Women like Lily. Women who had been manipulated and discarded by powerful men who thought money could buy silence. "Tell me everything," Rebecca said, opening a new file folder. For the next hour, Amanda told her story. The pattern was familiar. Love bombing followed by isolation. Financial control disguised as generosity. Systematic destruction of self-esteem and independence. "Do you have any documentation?" Rebecca asked. "Some, but he was careful to keep most things in his name only." "That's actually helpful. It shows intent to defraud. We can work with that." Rebecca scheduled a follow-up appointment and walked Amanda to the elevator. As the doors closed, she felt the same satisfaction she had experienced in law school when helping classmates with their cases. This was who she was meant to be. Back in her office, Emma had woken up and was making the soft sounds that meant she was hungry. Rebecca settled into the comfortable chair by the window and began nursing her daughter while reviewing case files. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Graduated nursing school today, starting at Children's Hospital next week. Thank you for showing me what strong women look like." Rebecca smiled and typed back, "Congratulations. You were already strong. You just needed to remember." Another text, this one from Sarah. "Saw your interview in the Legal Tribune. So proud of you. Coffee tomorrow?" "Absolutely. Bring the kids." Rebecca's life was fuller now than it had ever been as Jonathan's wife. Challenging work that mattered. Real friendships. A daughter who would grow up watching her mother build something meaningful. The intercom buzzed again. "Mrs. Sterling, there's a reporter from the Chronicle on line 2. Something about a feature story on women who've rebuilt their lives after financial abuse. Put her through." Rebecca had been doing more media interviews lately, not to attack Jonathan or seek revenge, but to educate other women about the warning signs of financial abuse, to show them that escape was possible. "This is Rebecca Sterling." "Mrs. Sterling, this is Jennifer Martinez from the Chronicle. I'm working on a piece about women who've successfully fought back against financial manipulation in marriage. Would you be willing to share your story?" "I'd be happy to, but I want to be clear about something. This isn't about destroying men or seeking revenge. It's about teaching women to recognize their own strength." That's exactly the angle we're looking for. As Rebecca scheduled the interview, Emma finished nursing and looked up at her with those serious gray eyes. Jonathan's eyes, but with an intelligence and curiosity that was purely her own. "What do you think, sweetheart?" Rebecca whispered. "Should mommy keep fighting the good fight?" Emma responded with a smile that lit up the entire office. Rebecca's computer chimed with an email notification, a new client inquiry from a woman in Seattle whose husband had been hiding assets in offshore accounts. The message was brief but desperate. "I found your name in an article about financial fraud in marriage. My husband is planning to leave me, and I think he's been moving money. I have 3 children and no job. Please help." Rebecca immediately typed back, "I'll help. Let's schedule a consultation this week." The sun was setting over the city when Rebecca finally packed up her files and prepared to leave the office. Emma was awake and alert, taking in the world with wide eyes. As they waited for the elevator, Rebecca caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. She looked different than she had a year ago. Not just physically, though, losing the baby weight had helped. She looked like herself again, like the woman she had been before Jonathan convinced her to become someone smaller. The elevator doors opened to reveal David Coleman, looking as polished as ever in his expensive suit. "Rebecca, I was just coming to see you." "David, what brings you downtown?" "Dinner, actually, with a very successful family law attorney who happens to be an old friend." Rebecca felt a flutter of something she hadn't experienced in years. Not since before Jonathan, not since she had been young and optimistic and believed in the possibility of partnerships between equals. "I'll have to check my calendar," she said, stepping into the elevator. "It's a standing invitation," David replied, "whenever you're ready." As they rode down together, Rebecca thought about second chances, about the difference between relationships built on manipulation and those built on mutual respect. Emma made a happy sound, reaching toward David with tiny fingers. "She likes you," Rebecca observed. "Smart kid. She takes after her mother." The elevator reached the ground floor, and they walked together toward the parking garage. Rebecca's car, a sensible SUV she had chosen herself, not the BMW Jonathan had selected, was parked near the exit. "Rebecca," David's voice was careful, "I know you're building something important here. I know you need time and space to figure out what comes next. But when you're ready, I'll let you know," she said. "That's all I can ask for." Rebecca drove home through the evening traffic, Emma sleeping in her car seat. The house looked different in the fading light. Not like Jonathan's monument to success, but like home. Inside, she made herself dinner while Emma played on a blanket in the kitchen. Simple pasta with vegetables from the garden she had planted in the spring. Nothing fancy, but it tasted better than any meal she had eaten during her marriage. Her phone rang as she was cleaning up, an unknown number. "Hello. Rebecca, this is Margaret Sterling." Rebecca almost dropped the plate she was holding. She hadn't spoken to her former mother-in-law since the board meeting. "Margaret, this is unexpected. I wanted to call and apologize for my part in what happened, for encouraging you to look the other way, for prioritizing reputation over right and wrong." Shuckenham, Rebecca sank into a kitchen chair, genuinely shocked. Margaret Sterling apologizing was like witnessing a natural phenomenon. "Thank you," Rebecca said. "That means more than you know. I also wanted to tell you that Emma's trust fund has been established, independent of Jonathan's assets. She'll be provided for, regardless of what happens with his legal troubles." "Legal troubles?" "The federal investigation is expanding. It seems Jonathan's crimes went deeper than any of us realized." Rebecca felt a moment of sadness for the man she had once loved, or thought she had loved. Then the moment passed, replaced by relief that she had escaped when she did. "How is he?" she asked. "Bitter, angry, convinced that everyone betrayed him." Margaret's voice was tired. "He refuses to accept responsibility for his choices." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You did what you had to do. What any intelligent woman would do in your situation." After Margaret hung up, Rebecca sat in her quiet kitchen, processing the conversation. Outside, the sun had set completely, leaving the house filled with warm lamplight. Emma had fallen asleep on her blanket, tiny fists curled against her cheeks. Rebecca picked her up carefully and carried her to the nursery, the room she had decorated herself, with soft yellow walls and furniture she had chosen for comfort rather than style. As she settled Emma into her crib, Rebecca whispered the same words she said every night. "You're going to grow up strong. You're going to know your worth. And you're never going to let anyone convince you to be smaller than you are." Emma sighed in her sleep, as if she understood. Rebecca walked to her bedroom, the master suite she had redecorated after Jonathan moved out. Gone were the cold grays and blacks he preferred. Now it was warm and inviting, with books on the nightstand and photographs of Emma on the dresser. Before getting ready for bed, she checked her email one more time. 7 new client inquiries, 3 interview requests, 1 invitation to speak at a conference on financial abuse. Her new life was busier than her old one had ever been. But it was her life, built on her choices, her values, her definition of success. Rebecca Sterling fell asleep that night with a smile on her face, dreaming of the future she was creating for herself and her daughter. A future where strength mattered more than silence, where truth mattered more than reputation, and where love was a partnership between equals rather than a prison built by lies. Outside her window, the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly toward the horizon, full of possibility. 1 year later, Rebecca Sterling stood at the podium of the Grand Ballroom in the Fairmont Hotel, looking out at an audience of 300 women. The annual conference for the National Coalition Against Financial Abuse had grown every year, and this year's theme was Reclaiming Your Power. "My name is Rebecca Sterling," she began, her voice clear and confident. 18 months ago, I was 7 months pregnant and discovering that my millionaire husband had been systematically hiding assets while planning to abandon me for a 24-year-old waitress. A murmur of recognition rippled through the audience. Many of them knew her story from the media coverage, but hearing it directly was different. Today, I want to talk to you about transformation. Not the kind of makeover you see in magazines, but the kind that happens when you remember who you really are. In the front row, Lily Parker smiled up at her, now 25, dressed in hospital scrubs with her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She had worked the night shift at Children's Hospital and come straight to the conference to hear Rebecca speak. "The first thing I want you to understand is that financial abuse is not about money. It's about control. It's about making you dependent so you'll accept unacceptable behavior." Rebecca clicked to the next slide in her presentation. Statistics about financial abuse in marriage. Numbers that represented real women with real stories. "My ex-husband didn't just hide $50 million from me. He convinced me to give up my law career. He isolated me from friends who might have warned me. He made me believe that my worth was tied to his success." In the third row, Amanda Sullivan nodded knowingly. She had become one of Rebecca's first clients and was now pursuing her own legal case against her ex-husband. Next to her sat Kelly Matthews, who had flown in from Seattle to attend the conference. "But here's what I learned," Rebecca continued. "You can't steal someone's intelligence. You can't hide their education. You can't transfer their strength to an offshore account." The audience laughed, and Rebecca felt the energy in the room shift. This wasn't a victim support group. This was a gathering of survivors who had found their power. "I want to tell you about Lily Parker," Rebecca said, gesturing toward the front row. "She was my husband's mistress, but she was also his victim. When she realized he had been lying to both of us, she did something brave. She warned me." Lily blushed as the audience applauded. "Lily and I could have become enemies. We could have fought over a man who was lying to both of us. Instead, we chose to support each other. She's now a pediatric nurse saving children's lives. I'm a family law attorney helping women rebuild theirs." Rebecca advanced to her final slide, a photograph of her law office with the nameplate clearly visible. Sterling Family Law, protecting what matters most. "I kept my married name not because I'm proud of my marriage, but because I earned the right to use it. I survived it. I overcame it. And now I'm using it to help other women do the same." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After her speech, Rebecca was surrounded by women wanting to share their stories, ask for advice, or simply thank her for speaking out. She listened to each one, offering what guidance she could and collecting business cards to follow up later. "Excuse me, Mrs. Sterling?" Rebecca turned to find a young woman, maybe 22, with nervous eyes and a baby carrier strapped to her chest. "I'm Jessica Martinez. I read about you online. My husband, he's been doing things with money. And he says if I leave him, I'll get nothing because I signed papers when we got married." Rebecca's heart clenched. Jessica looked exactly like she had felt 18 months ago. Scared, isolated, convinced she had no options. "How old is your baby?" Rebecca asked gently. 3 months, and I think my husband is seeing someone else. But he says I'm crazy. That pregnancy made me paranoid." "You're not crazy," Rebecca said firmly. "And you're not trapped. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight?" Jessica nodded. "My sister's house, but she thinks I should try to work things out. For the baby." Sometimes the best thing you can do for your baby is show them what a strong mother looks like. Rebecca handed Jessica her business card. "Call my office tomorrow. We'll figure out your options." As Jessica walked away clutching the card, Lily appeared at Rebecca's elbow. "You just saved that girl's life," Lily said. "Maybe, or maybe she'll decide to go back to him. You can't force someone to leave. You can only show them that leaving is possible." They walked together toward the hotel exit. Outside, San Francisco sparkled in the afternoon sun. The city where Rebecca had once felt so small and powerless now felt full of possibility. "Want to grab coffee?" Lily asked. I have a few hours before my next shift. I'd love to, but I need to pick up Emma from daycare. She has her first swim lesson today. How is she? Perfect. Walking everywhere, climbing everything, completely fearless. Rebecca smiled. She's going to be trouble. The best kind of trouble. They hugged goodbye outside the hotel. Lily headed toward the hospital where she was making a difference in children's lives. Rebecca walked toward her car, thinking about the speech she had just given and the woman she had become. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. Watched your speech online. Incredible as always. Dinner tomorrow? She typed back. Yes, but I choose the restaurant this time. Deal. Somewhere Emma can come too. Rebecca smiled. David had been patient while she rebuilt her life, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. They had been dating officially for 6 months, but their relationship was built on the foundation of friendship and mutual respect that had been growing since law school. Always, she replied. The drive to Emma's daycare took Rebecca through the financial district, past the Sterling Innovations building, where Jonathan had once ruled a tech empire. The company had survived the scandal, rebuilt under new leadership. Jonathan himself had avoided prison time, but lost everything else: his assets, his reputation, his family's trust. He lived now in a modest apartment in Oakland, working as a consultant and slowly paying back the money he had stolen. Rebecca felt no satisfaction in his downfall, just relief that Emma would grow up knowing the difference between justice and revenge. At the daycare, Emma ran toward her on unsteady toddler legs, arms outstretched and face bright with joy. 15 months old, with Rebecca's determination and her own fierce independence. Mama! Emma launched herself into Rebecca's arms. How was my girl today? Rebecca asked the daycare teacher. Busy. She organized all the blocks by color, then built a tower taller than herself. Rebecca laughed. Sounds about right. On the drive home, Emma chattered in her car seat, pointing out dogs and trucks and airplanes with the enthusiasm only toddlers possessed. Rebecca listened to her daughter's running commentary and marveled at how much her life had changed. A year ago, she had been terrified of raising a child alone. Now she couldn't imagine it any other way. Their house came into view as they rounded the corner. Not the Sterling mansion with its perfect landscaping and cold marble, but a Victorian they had bought in a family neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, a yard for Emma to play in, and a home office where Rebecca could work while still being present for her daughter. Home, Emma announced as Rebecca pulled into the driveway. That's right, sweetheart. We're home. Inside, Rebecca set Emma up with her toys in the living room while she reviewed files for tomorrow's cases. 3 new clients this week, all women who had found her through media coverage or word of mouth. Her practice was growing faster than she could have imagined. Her laptop chimed with an email notification. The subject line made her pause. From Jonathan Sterling. Rebecca hesitated, then opened it. Rebecca, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know that I'm in therapy. Real therapy, not the kind I pretended to go to during our marriage. I'm beginning to understand the damage I caused. Not just to you, but to Lily, Amanda, Kelly, and probably others I haven't even acknowledged yet. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to become a better person. For Emma's sake, if nothing else. I hope she grows up proud of her mother, because you're the strongest person I've ever known. Even if it took me losing everything to realize it. Jonathan. Rebecca read the message twice, then deleted it. Some bridges were burned beyond repair, and that was okay. Emma would know her father if she chose to when she was older, but for now Rebecca was building their life without his influence. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed Margaret Sterling. Hello, Margaret. Rebecca, dear, I wanted to let you know that Emma's college fund has been fully established. $25 million, completely independent of Jonathan's remaining assets. That's very generous. It's the least I can do. I also wanted to tell you that I've been following your work, your law practice, your speaking engagements. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. The words hung in the air. Margaret Sterling didn't give compliments easily. Thank you, Rebecca said. That means a great deal. Emma is lucky to have you as her mother. After Margaret hung up, Rebecca sat in her quiet house, watching Emma play with blocks on the carpet. Outside, the sun was setting over their neighborhood. Normal families were arriving home from work, starting dinner, beginning their evening routines. Rebecca's phone buzzed with another text, this one from Sarah. Book club tonight at my house. We're discussing Educated by Tara Westover. Perfect for you. Woman escaping, controlling family, getting education, finding her power. Sound familiar? Rebecca smiled and typed back, can't tonight. Rain check? Always. Love you, friend. As darkness fell, Rebecca gave Emma her bath, read 3 picture books, and tucked her into the crib she would soon outgrow for a big girl bed. Emma went to sleep easily, tired from a full day of exploring and learning. Rebecca returned to her home office and opened the file for Jessica Martinez, the young woman from the conference. Tomorrow she would start building a case to help another woman escape a marriage built on lies and control. Her computer screen showed the logo she had designed for her practice. Sterling Family Law, protecting what matters most. Below it, a quote she had added recently, "Justice is truth in action." Rebecca looked around her office. Law books filled the shelves. Framed photos of Emma covered her desk. Thank you cards from clients lined one wall. This was what success looked like when you defined it for yourself. Her phone buzzed with one final message of the day. From Lily. Saved 3 kids today. One had the flu, one broke his arm, one was just scared and needed someone to hold his hand. Reminded me that the best revenge is a life well lived. Thank you for showing me what that looks like. Rebecca typed back, thank you for showing me what courage looks like. See you next month for Emma's birthday party? Wouldn't miss it. I'm bringing the cake. Rebecca closed her laptop and walked to the window overlooking her garden. She had planted it herself last spring. Vegetables and flowers mixed together in organized chaos. Emma loved helping her water the plants and had already learned the names of most of the flowers. Tomorrow would bring new clients, new challenges, new opportunities to make a difference. David was taking them both to dinner at a family restaurant where Emma could color on the tablecloth and no one would judge them for being loud. Next week, Rebecca was flying to Chicago to speak at another conference. Next month, she was starting a nonprofit organization to provide legal services to women who couldn't afford private attorneys. But tonight, she was simply Rebecca Sterling, mother, lawyer, survivor, and architect of her own destiny. She walked to Emma's room and stood in the doorway, watching her daughter sleep. Emma's face was peaceful, her tiny hand curled around a stuffed elephant that had been a gift from Lily. Sweet dreams, my brave girl, Rebecca whispered. Tomorrow we'll build something beautiful together. Outside, the city sparkled with possibility. Inside, mother and daughter slept safely in the home they had built together. A home where truth mattered more than appearances, where strength was valued over submission, and where love meant partnership instead of control. Rebecca Sterling had kept her married name, but she had made it mean something entirely new. Not the decoration on a powerful man's arm, but the signature on legal documents that change women's lives. Not the perfect wife who stayed silent, but the fierce advocate who spoke truth to power. She had lost a marriage built on lies and gained a life built on justice. And that, she thought as she finally fell asleep, was the best kind of revenge there was. If this story of justice and transformation resonated with you, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. What would you have done in Rebecca's situation? Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to reclaim your power. And don't forget to subscribe because we're just getting started with stories that prove truth really is stranger than fiction. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when ordinary people do extraordinary things.